right, guys, welcome back to the Designated Players Podcast. This is a kind of a spin-off episode on this CONCACAF Champions League coming up. We were supposed to put this into the last episode, but it ran way too long, and we weren't going to make this a 2.5 hour, 3 hour podcast. So we put this separate, and it should be going out the day before CONCACAF Champions League starts up. So I'm here just with Adam again because Connor's not here. Say hi, Adam.
So,
Hello again. So basically what we're going to do, we're going to go through each matchup. We're going to talk a little bit about them, a little bit about the other team as much as we could learn because a lot of these teams are super off the grid. And then we'll make some predictions, our first predictions ever, which is exciting because that's something that'll be a staple of this podcast is prediction time. So I guess we'll start with the first one on the list, which is Atlanta versus Motagua. So Atlanta take on Motagua of Honduras, which have been one of the most successful Honduran clubs over the past few years, making four CONCACAF Champions League appearances in their history, most recently in 2018. Right now, as of last week, they were top of their table, and they made it to this thing called the CONCACAF League, which is like the NIT for the CONCACAF Champions League. So essentially what it is it's like you play a tournament, and it's the winner gets an automatic bid to CONCACAF Champions League, but it's a way for the smaller teams to get in, so it's not just the same Saprisas, the same Lyons, the same, the big clubs that always are in it and always win it. It's not just a tournament like that. So they made it to the finals of that league, or that tournament, and they lost 1-0 on aggregate to Saprissa, which is the Costa Rican powerhouse. And they qualified kind of through that. I think they honestly, I don't know how they qualified. They qualified through Honduras, but I think there was a way that they could have qualified through CONCACAF League as well. Um, so they had a top scorer from last year named Rubio Castillo, but they transferred him out to CD Tondela in Portugal. And that's all the information I was able to find on them. Anything I missed from you?
no. The only thing I got from doing all this research is that CONCACAF and this whole Champions League competition makes no sense.
Yes.
There are too many ways to qualify. It's just weird.
Um, let's do a quick Google search. How did Motagua qualify for Champions League?
If Google doesn't know, then no one knows.
Oh, well, of course it'll take you to Wikipedia.
Good.
And I have literally nothing.
Okay, cool.
Um,
Yeah, this whole competition I don't understand.
yeah.
It's not every MLS team. It's a handful of either South American teams, some I've heard of, some that I couldn't tell you a single thing about if I wasn't doing this podcast. Um, the MLS fan in me obviously will say the MLS teams will win all of these matchups. However, I've seen enough MLS to know that's definitely not the case, and these teams will somehow blow it to teams I've never heard of.
So Doug Robertson, who is the beat writer for Atlanta United, says that Motagua qualified by finishing as the runners-up in the CONCACAF League. So I was right. That is how they qualified. Um, Atlanta United qualifies by winning the U.S. Open Cup, which we all know they did against the Mighty Loons, which
Hmm.
was heartbreaking. I would love to see the Loons in CONCACAF Champions League, but it seems like it'll be a brutal draw. It was this round not so much. Um, However, if they beat Motagua, which I think they will, and we'll talk about predictions in a second, they're very likely to face Club America, which anybody who knows Mexican football knows that Club America is one of the powerhouses of Mexican football. So they got stuck on a weird side of a bracket, which sucks to be them, I guess. Again, I don't ever hate seeing Atlanta lose. So um, my prediction, first prediction ever, With all the new pieces that Atlanta brought in, I think they still have enough to get it done. Josef Martinez is Josef Martinez after all. I say Atlanta advances 4-2 on aggregate.
Yeah, I think that if this was a different MLS team, and obviously there aren't that many in this competition because this tournament makes no sense. I think Atlanta's the one team that is able to handle playing in Club America, and that's obviously assuming they get past Motagua, which I mean I have to assume that they will.
All right,
Um,
so what is your official prediction then?
I'm gonna go 5-1 on aggregate. I think they
Ooh, big
have.
one.
I think they have enough talent going forward, like we said. I think the new additions. This will be a good kind of extra little preseason, not preseason game, but an extra little 90 minutes under their belt to gel, to get used to playing with their teammates and learn kind of the Atlanta system. And I think their back line, especially now with Brooks Lennon, comes in, and I think they do the job pretty easily and get in, get out.
Yeah, like I said, I think the biggest thing for them is going to be able to survive going down to Honduras. That's never an easy thing to do. I mean, U.S. couldn't win at Trinidad, so anytime going away to just a weird place, right? Like some place nobody's really used to playing. Especially after playing at Mercedes-Benz and then going to a stadium in Honduras that's probably not nearly as nice. If they can get out of there, um, get an away goal, even if it's a 1-1 um, scoreline, I think they can go into Mercedes-Benz and um, just crush it.
Yeah, I think the exact opposite thing is Motagua going into Mercedes Benz. I mean, I obviously don't know what the Motagua Stadium looks like. I have to assume it's nothing like Mercedes Benz in terms of size and quality. But I think Atlanta in that home match just play them off the park, assuming they pull out a full strength lineup at that point.
Right. So I guess for that we made our first predictions. That is a milestone in this podcast. Very exciting. Very exciting. Um, we are going to go ahead and move on to LAFC versus Lyon. Now, for a team like LAFC, who seems like they could have beat anybody, I think they got one of the hardest draws um, they could have gotten out of the five teams here.
I think
So the Liga MX
the
spring
hardest.
season, yeah, Saprissa and Montreal is tough, but I think this is up there. So Liga MX spring season just started, um, but Leon sit in fourth at the time of research. They made one appearance in Champions League in 2014-15. Their leading scorers are Mena with 11 goals as a winger, Macias with 9 goals as a striker, and Sosa, a winger with 8 goals. The key for me is if this goalkeeper Vermeer for LAFC is going to be able to organize that back line and keep them in check because Leon attack and they go at you and they're going to go with pace and speed. And if you got a new goalkeeper in there who doesn't know who's supposed to be marking who, where you should be defending, how your line should look, that could go very very poorly very quickly. Leon qualified by being the 2019 Clausura runners-up, which I believe is the fall season. So Mexican League is split in two seasons, um, spring and fall. And oh nope, I lied. It is the spring season. It's the second championship of the season. It's starting in January 4th and ending 26th of May. Right now, or because they won that league, um, they finished with 41 points through 17 games, beating UANL by 4 points. So I don't know if that means anything. I just started watching Mexican football. Vámonos Gallos. Come on, Querétaro. Just plug that real quick. For me, I think LAFC do still have the ability to get past this team. I think just all over the field, Carlos Vela is going to be able to pick apart this Mexican defense without any issue. Um, but I think it'll be a challenge. I think LAFC advances 3-3 on away goals.
Going back to Ramir, I think at 35 years old, I mean, yes, they just lost Walker Zimmerman, which is a massive hole at center back. But I think at 35, he's got obviously experience playing in the Dutch league. He's got experience playing all over Europe. I don't see that necessarily as an issue. I think he comes in, he knows what he wants out of his defenders, and he should be fairly organized pretty quickly. I think if LAFC can't beat Lyon, and specifically this LAFC team, arguably one of the best MLS teams, definitely in recent memory, if not ever.
Definitely not arguably. They set the record.
I mean, well, yes, true, but they didn't win MLS Cup, so doesn't matter. Um, but I think if they can't get past Lyon, then MLS teams have very little to no hope in a tournament where we haven't won in almost 20 years.
Yeah, no, and that's the thing. You're looking for a team that who is going to be the team to break the record, right? Who's going to be the first team to do it? And you look at the five teams that they got here. You got Atlanta, LAFC, Montreal, NYCFC, and Seattle. Um, of all those teams, you have to think LAFC and Atlanta are the leaders there. Seattle and NYC are kind of like the ones coming up, and then you got Montreal, who nah.
True.
So that Walker Zimmerman loss, if they don't replace him quickly, yeah, you're right. That could hurt big time. But I still think that that's why I think that it's going to be tough. But I think they still get it done. They've got that attacking talent up top is going to find a way to put the ball in the back of the net. So even if they can't keep the ball out, they will still get enough in.
Yeah. I'll say 4-3 Lyon.
All right, big bold one.
Just only because they're already in season, whereas LAFC are just kind of getting themselves into gear in preparation for the new season. I think yes, they've had a few preseason games, but obviously playing a full season, getting actual meaningful games going into this will give Leon the edge.
All right, that's bold. I like that. So we move on and we hit Montreal versus Saprissa. And when I said that Leon might have been one of the tougher draws, this is the toughest matchup. Saprissa are the Costa Rican Giants. And you're going away to start when you have nothing under your belt. This game could be over on Tuesday. This matchup could be over on Tuesday, no questions. Um, Saprissa won the CONCACAF League, which allows them to qualify directly for this tournament. Um, they didn't win the Costa Rican League um, because some other Costa Rican team won it. Um, oh, nope, I thought it was going to show it and it didn't. Um, because San Carlos is the other Costa Rican team, which we're going to talk about in a second, and they were the best ranked losing quarterfinalists in the same CONCACAF league.
I'm telling you, this tournament makes no sense.
Bro, it's mental. Um, so they're led by Johan Venegas and Miller Bolaños, two former MLS players, 17 and 9 goals respectively. They know how to win games. They won a full CONCACAF league, got through a ton of different things, and with Henri now taking charge in Montreal with a team that is up in the air. Piatti. I think losing Piatti um, might be really big there, right? Um, because he was their attacker, um, and they also lost Omar Brown, who we're going to talk about in a second. But he is a Champions League menace. He was for the Independiente side that rocked TFC after they set the record in MLS the year before. They signed him and he fell flat, but now he's gone. So even if they wanted somebody else, that's gone too. So all that thrown together, Saprissa advanced 4-1 on aggregate, and I think this game's over on Tuesday.
Yeah, it's hard to argue. I mean, losing Piatti with the impact that he's had for them over the last few seasons, I going forward. I mean, yes, they have Bojan, they have Lapalainen, who I love,
You
but
love him because of his name.
yeah, that too. I do like him as a player. I remember the first couple games he came on for Montreal midseason and was very impressive. But I just look at Henri's record at Monaco, and yes, different league, different team. I understand that. I just don't know if he's necessarily the manager to come in and turn Montreal into winners, unless he's planning on being a player manager and just taking Piatti's spot on that wing. Which
And
I'm
he
all,
probably could do it too.
oh, he 100% could do it, and I would be here for it. Um, but yeah, I don't see them going very far in this tournament.
No, no. Like I said, there's just not enough there for them to be successful. And I think there's no reason to even keep talking about it. I think it's over on Tuesday. We might not even need to talk about them going into next week.
No, I'll say 4-2 aggregate.
Giving them 2 goals, very nice.
Yeah, why
Um,
not?
yeah, on reboots one from the sideline, it goes in. They give it to him for pity.
Yeah, that works. Those count.
All right, second to last matchup here. New York City versus San Carlos. So battle of the newbies here. New York City first appearance, San Carlos first appearance. New York City, obviously, top of the East. That's how they qualified this year, and they were the MLS regular season champions, right? San Carlos, the best ranked losing quarterfinalists. That's how they. So it gets even better, right? Because we talked about Motagua being runners up, um, and we already talked about Lyon, but then there's another team that was that's playing Seattle called Olympia, and we're going to talk about them in a second. They qualified by being the better ranked losing semifinalist. I don't know what I'm looking at, but this is why we love this league because it doesn't make sense. But anyways, um, San Carlos, we talked about it before. Omar Brown, right? The guy who he might not even do anything for them in in their league or in anything, but when he gets into CONCACAF Champions League, he becomes a menace. He went on to this Independiente side that rocked Toronto FC. And I mean, this was the Toronto FC that walked off MLS as the greatest team ever. Josie Altidore, Michael Bradley when he was half decent, Giovinco, you know, every player you could imagine they were unstoppable. And then this Independiente team comes out of nowhere and just smacks them upside the head. And it was because this Omar Brown guy scored like 5 goals in 2 games. It was absurd. And he plays for San Carlos. So they also have basically the 2015 MLS Best 11 with Alvaro Saborio.
Oh wow,
Yeah, throwing that name back.
I haven't heard that name in
37
forever.
years old.
Yeah, but
37 years old.
Jesus.
Top goal scorer with 13 goals. Other than that,
Alrighty.
they got nothing. Other than that, they got nothing. So you're either going to need Brown to score 12 goals, or this one doesn't look great. And I hate to admit it, New York City going to advance 3-1 on aggregate, and that one is going to be maybe an own goal or something stupid.
This comes down to whoever wins their home game by more. I
You
don't.
think?
Yeah, I can't see NYC winning on the road, depending on how the San Carlos pitch looks, and then I can't see them losing at home in the tiny shoebox of a stadium that is Yankee Stadium, unless they're playing at Red Bull Arena, in which case anything could happen.
Well, which they are. That's been confirmed now, right?
Yes, officially.
Yes.
So
So
okay, so that changes things.
the thing for me is because they're so used to playing on baseball fields.
Hmm.
I think they're going to have no problem going into a San Carlos, Costa Rican field
Okay.
and and tearing up. And that's why I think so.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, okay. I forgot they were playing officially at Red Bull, so I think they go through. Unfortunately,
Yeah, I know. Man, imagine they win Champions League.
no. Don't worry about that.
We would never hear the end of it. Prediction.
For 5-1.
All right, go big, go home. Got it.
Eber hat trick, because why not?
Yeah, sure. All right. Final one here. Like I said, real quick, just didn't want to combine anything on the last one. So the final CONCACAF Champions League matchup we have Seattle versus Olympia. And as I mentioned before, Olympia were the better ranked losing semifinalists out of the CONCACAF League, which means they qualify.
Sure.
Sure. Seattle got matched up with the most successful Honduran side in the history of Honduran football, which is compared to Motagua, who is one of the best uh, sides. So this one is the best of the best. And Red Bull actually came up against them 2 years ago. Um, and this, I believe, was when Luis Robles had his belter of a game, and he made like 13 saves and ran the show basically, and was the only reason we got through was because of him. We went down to Honduras, and he just came out of nowhere. Olympia during that year were the first ever CONCACAF League winners in 2017. So they're another team that clearly knows how to win an international tournament. Um, they've got tons of success in other international competitions just in their history. Two CONCACAF Champions Cups, two UNCAF Cups. Don't know what any of these are, but they clearly know how to win internationally. Seattle are going to have a new look back line. Going to need Fry to pull out some spectaculars. This one might be closer than most people think.
Um, yeah, I say next year we just pick teams out of a hat. It'll make as about as much sense as the way some of these teams have qualified. Um, yeah, I mean, we talked about it last episode when we covered Seattle, but coming off the back of an MLS Cup, they didn't do crazy amount of moves this offseason, just, strengthen here and there, but I think they get through not fairly easily, but enough that this shouldn't be an issue for them.
Interesting.
Um,
See, I think going down to Olympia might be tough for them because they're very good on their home field, as proven when they played Red Bull.
True. So is Seattle, though.
Yes, yes. So originally I had Olympia winning 4-3 on aggregate, and I think I might change it.
All right.
You go first. Let me think about this.
Okay. I'll say. So I want to say 3-2, but I'm going to say 2-2 and Seattle go through on away goals.
So Seattle win 2-2 at Olympia and then go 0-0 at home.
Sure.
Okay. I'm keeping my prediction. I think Olympia advances 4-3 on aggregate simply because of Toronto FC in 2017 when they got smacked and it was just the downfall.
All right.
And I think coming off that MLS Cup with they brought in some new players here or there, but I think I think they're just in some sort of a slump maybe. I don't know. I just don't I have a weird feeling about this one. So I'm gonna say Olympia 4-3 on aggregate.
All right.
So, special question of the day, because we had one on Friday, and then this was supposed to be part of Friday's show, but it's not. It's on Monday's show. So we're gonna go another question of the day. So aren't you guys lucky?
So, question of the day, and I made this CCL relevant. And now that we've spoken about how many games? 5 games? 6 games? 5 games. And the 10 teams that will be playing that first round. Do you think that MLS teams, I don't want to say not care about this tournament, but do you think they go full strength against these South American teams, knowing that their season is just getting underway?
That's a great question because it's something that we've been asking for a while, right? We start up our season with Champions League, while Mexican teams are mid second season. They really don't have a break. They've got like a few days off, and then they're right back to training. Um, so I'm gonna say they do take it seriously as seriously as they can because they still have to worry about managing injuries if they're coming off injuries or new players getting them acclimated, right? Again, I'm going to go back to the only thing that I know, New York Red Bull, right? When we were in Champions League, Kaku barely saw the field. Jesse Marsh took so much heat for that decision because 5 games after we got knocked out, he became one of the best attacking mids in the first half of that season. And everybody was like, why didn't we play him in Champions League? We could have won that thing. And he came out and said he wasn't acclimated yet. He wasn't ready to go. And that's a fair statement because it's not like FIFA and it's not like a game. People do take time to get acclimated, and sometimes it's not right to put them in a situation where they'll fail, right? So um, I think the answer is yes, they take this seriously because it's a Champions League and because of what it means to win something like that, but they don't take it stupidly. They don't go out and say, here are our best players, we're just going to throw them out there and we'll win. Because there's real stuff behind it, injury prevention going into a season, acclimation of players who are brand new, um, managing national teams. Some players have been in national team camp over January. You got to be careful with that too, right? So there are tons of different things you got to worry about. So I say yes, they take it seriously. Yes, they care, but they are doing it to the best of their ability.
Okay. And the reason I ask is because MLS teams, on the majority, aren't known for having crazy amount of depth. It's not as if, European teams like Chelsea or Everton have, academies and guys on loan and, 20, 25-man rosters that when they play an FA Cup game or a League Cup game, they can rotate some of the younger kids in. Yes, we have academies, and yes, players of Red Bull 2 kind of, can make up some of these Champions League rosters if we need to rotate and keep guys from getting injured. But looking down the list, I mean, Atlanta, this isn't their first priority. LAFC, this isn't their first priority. NYC, maybe. Seattle, I assume, would be trying to go back-to-back MLS Cups. So to me, this doesn't seem like a top priority. And God forbid, and I don't want to even say this in case I jinx it, but let's say Atlanta go to Motagua and Yosef gets hurt for 6 months. I mean, that's their season,
Yeah,
like over something that isn't necessarily their top priority to begin with.
right. I think they do take it seriously, and they try. I'd say it is their number one priority until the season comes, right? So they're going to take this game and they're going to play it to win. But once the season comes around, that's going to be their next new first priority. And then if they get really deep into it, then they got to balance players and balance um, rosters and rotate and things like that. But you're right. You can make up your roster with RB2 players, USL players, but are they at the level that they need to be at to play against Lyon, Olympia, and some of the other, giants? No, of course not. And that being, the restrictions on rosters and payment, and this is a whole nother conversation for another podcast, maybe like an off week podcast of the restrictions of the league and how it hurts us. Um, but the teams I don't think are in a position right now to be successful yet in international competitions is the term I'm looking for, because you look at Tigres, right? Tigres can go out and buy whoever the hell they want, and they have, and they won, and they're winners. You Red Bull can go out and buy 3 players of that quality if they wanted to, which they don't, but you can go out and buy 3 players of quality, and that's it. And then you can get a few people with TAM, but the TAM is limited too. There's a ton of restrictions which are necessary. The restrictions are necessary, and again, we'll get into this at another time, but and we kind of did already a little bit, but the restrictions are necessary so that um, the league doesn't fold under under lack of attendance if you get relegated, or if local markets lose fans because their team doesn't can't afford to spend, but LA and NYC and RBNY and all these other teams can. They're just going to follow them because they're more exciting. The rules are in place for a reason, but right now we're not in a position to do that. So I think they take it as seriously as they can, and that's it.
Yeah, part of me says because these first round matches aren't on TV, unless weren't they on Twitter a few years ago?
They were on Twitter and there was a live stream on, I think MSG Go live streamed the Olympia game. But yeah, you're right. They're not on. It's not like a UEFA Champions League where they're on every Sky Sports network or anything like that.
Even
Um,
even just in ESPN Plus, something semi like no one wants to watch it on Twitter.
right, right. I mean,
Um,
I watch the Friday games on Twitter, and even that's difficult for me.
right. Um, but assuming so, obviously the harder matchups aside, let's say all five MLS teams look at this first round of games and say, all right, we 100% think that we have the talent and capability to get through this. No problem. Len, obviously, we talked about, managing injuries as the season progresses and games start to pile up, especially when things like the Open Cup and everything, MLS starts really getting into it. You have international breaks. Like, the season ramps up very quickly. Um, I think looking at the five teams that play in the MLS, I think Montreal unfortunately doesn't have the roster to do it, but I think this is the thing that they should be saying, let's, go 100%, let's try to win this thing. Because they're not winning at MLS, let's be real.
Right.
The four other teams, well, three other teams, New York City, I guess aside, all potentially should be winning MLS Cup. I would say these three are arguably the three favorites to win again this year.
Right. And honestly, I'd throw NYC in there too. They brought back basically their entire team.
I know, but I didn't want to admit that.
I know. I know. I hate it too.
Right. So how much of that do you think they look at and they say, all right, our fixture list is going to pile up very quickly, and this isn't our, if we lose and we get knocked out of the Champions League before season starts, then that's fine. We go full throttle into the MLS season, not a care in the world outside of our league. This becomes our main focus. We go to win this.
I don't think you do that because I think MLS as a league is so volatile that anything can happen. So I don't think you say, all right, scrap the entire season, let's go win this one trophy when there's a genuine chance you could win anything. I mean, you look at Open Cup, you know, Houston made it to Open Cup semis this year, and they were awful last year. You look, and that's another way back into this, right? They also Montreal also has to focus on Canadian Cup because that's how they qualified this year. And if they can win that, which they can, they've done it a bunch. Um, that's other things. So there are tons of other things to focus on that you don't just. I don't think you scrap it and say just let's send it.
Yeah, that's fair. I just feel like and I don't know obviously if it's you can watch it in South America, but the fact that we can't really watch these games, I would probably argue that the average MLS fan of these five teams maybe will follow these games, but certainly, aren't going out of their way to find the stream online. It just seems that this can only kind of be a distraction, especially, and it's not as if an MLS team is winning, every 2-3 years and there's some sort of hope. I mean, the LA Galaxy were the last team that plays in the MLS to win this tournament, and that was 20 years ago. Like, the South American teams take this tournament way more seriously than we do.
Right, and again, I think it goes back to roster restrictions and a lot of other things that tie into that, which we can talk about at another time. But right now, I think there's so much more to play for than just this tournament. Like if you look at other teams, right? Um, Honduras, Costa Rica, the only thing they have to play for are their league and this. We've got Open Cup. We've got Leagues Nation now, or whatever that thing is, where we're playing against the other Mexican sides. We've got um, MLS Cup, obviously, Supporter Shield. Some of there's Canadian Cup. There are different local cups that you can play for. Tons of different things to play for. Where that might also play into why this isn't such a big deal. We can talk about how long it is to, or how wrong it is that it's not an easily broadcast or easily found. But again, that goes back to not being a soccer nation, right? So that's another reason. But again, all things that tie into it. That at the end of the day, I think they take it as seriously as they can until they can't. Excuse me. And yeah, I think at the end of the day, they put as much into it as they can, knowing that there are tons of other things to play for.
True. Especially, and I don't know if this is true for every league, but the leagues that are already underway, so the Costa Rican League, Mexican League. I mean, I'm looking at the Costa Rican league table right now. Spurs is 6-2-1 after 9 games. They sit on 20 points, top of the league. There are 12 teams total in the entire league, and they already have a 19-point gap on 12th place.
God.
So, the team in second is 1 point behind them, and then the team in third is already 4 points, and then 6 points behind them. So they've
Right.
already gotten a decent lead 9 games into the season.
Right, and that's the thing, right? Once they get that league, because there's no playoffs, because there's no East versus West, they don't have to worry about that. They don't have to
Exactly.
worry, right? So there are other things to play for here that there isn't there, and that might be why they take it more seriously.
True. Let's see. I can check the Honduran League. Maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would have to imagine that, especially because these are these are very small leagues. Like the Motagua is on 16 points after 7 games, and they have a 1 point, 2 point, and 3 point over the top 4 out of 10. So
Right, but it's out of 10, right? Like they can fall to 6th and still be within 3 points.
yeah,
Right? So it's not a 26, 20, 28, 30 team league that they're playing for playoff spots, and they're playing to get the best spots so they have the best home field advantage, and there's so much other stuff going on here that isn't going on anywhere else.
exactly.
You know, that's a great question. That was loaded, and I liked it.
Thank you.
But other than that, I've got nothing else to add for this mini show.
Yeah, I think we're good.
Fantastic. Guys, thanks for tuning in. I've been Andrew. This is Adam. We were talking about CONCACAF Champions League. Leave in the comments below what you think is going to happen. Who's going to win? Who in the MLS table, or out of the MLS teams, has the best chance of winning? Let us know. We are going to hopefully get this onto Buzzsprout. We'll get it onto Spotify. We'll get it onto SoundCloud, YouTube, and then follow us on Instagram, designated_players_podcast1. Follow us at Twitter, the DP Pod 1. Send emails to us. We want to hear your questions. We want to talk to you guys. So the dppod@gmail.com is the email to send that stuff to. And yeah, on YouTube, go ahead and follow us. This will be posted there. It'll be the Designated Players Podcast is the name of that one. So go ahead and subscribe to that and leave us your comments there. And other than that, thank you guys for joining us. Adam, any parting words?
Go Red Bulls, and I'm picking my teams out of the hat next year for this tournament.
Yes, brilliant, awesome, guys. Thanks for tuning in. And almost there. Just one more week or a few more weeks until MLS kicks off. But thanks for listening to another episode, and we'll see you next time on the Designated Players Podcast.